Also, for the algorithm, real quick, I'm just going to say Fire Fist a lot because I figured that this might entice our One Piece fans. So, Fire Fist. Hi, I'm Shamar Griffith.
And I'm Andrew Tejada. We're going through superhero productions to let you know if they're still fun or the hype around it was dumb on
Cape or Cap, a Black Nerd superhero podcast. Welcome to this week's installment of Cape or Cap, a Black Nerd superhero podcast. My name is Shamar Griffith, codename Comics Champs.
And I am Andrew Tejada, codename Arate.
Andrew and I have known each other since 1996.
That was the year Ryan Reynolds appeared in the Sabrina the Teenage Witch movie, not the series, the movie, as Hot Guy Seth. That's his name. That's his description on Wikipedia.
Wow. You know, it's funny because I was just thinking about it. For some reason, I feel like Seth was a strong name back in the 90s for some weird reason.
Yeah, that was like, it was very, maybe because close to the Egyptian set, that's very big energy. And now, I know like one Seth now, just one. He's cool. He's cool though. He's the best chef
Seth?
I know.
Shout out to Seth. So, Seth. That is a tongue twister. But yeah, shout out to Seth. Thank you for cooking up everything, especially hopefully you weren't inspired. Your name wasn't inspired by the Ryan Reynolds character in that one random Sabrina the Teenage Witch movie. But in today's episode of our podcast, we are going to be focusing heavily on Ryan Reynolds, the man, the myth, the legend. I personally like him because he plays the same character in all of his stuff. So I appreciate a guy that could make that work.
Hey, it's working. It's working for him. If it ain't broke.
Right. But today we are talking about the character that is probably the most famous of his, as we are talking about the third Deadpool movie that he made and produced, which is called Once Upon a Deadpool. That's right. Deadpool actually has a 4-movie saga. That is not a trilogy. There is actually a movie in between 2 and 3.
Yes. And technically this is a 2-for-1 review because this is basically Deadpool 2 with some extra stuff. So this is also our review of Deadpool 2.
Yeah, so at a runtime of 120 minutes, this 2018 film had a very limited release. This is the first Deadpool movie that is actually rated PG-13, and it was directed by David Leitch, who is the director behind such productions such as, well, the original Deadpool 2, Fast and Furious Hobbs and Shaw, Bullet Train, Atomic Blonde, and another recent great film, which is a great love letter to all the stunt work and stunt people out there who are doing the things to make us love these superhero movies and action movies as a whole. Fall Guy.
Yes, you can definitely tell it's a David Leitch movie because while they do, he's not afraid of CGI, he definitely tries to do as much in-camera stunt work as possible. So definitely, if you somehow have not seen any of those, at least one, go watch at least one of them.
Yeah, I think at some points all of these movies have played in various households of mine. I'm not rich. I just meant by like hopping around to different family members. They haven't played in at least like 2 of these movies have played back to back in the house at any given point. And we got our writer duo here today. We got Rhett Reese, famous for putting together all 3 Deadpool movies, including the recent one, Deadpool and Wolverine. Don't worry, we're not going to be spoiling any of the film. I've seen it. Have you seen it, Andrew?
Yeah, I've seen it. All I can spoil is it is now the highest grossing R-rated movie of all time.
Yes.
It has beaten Joker. It has beaten Passion of the Christ. It is now at the top of the
I am not going to say the line from the movie, but yes. So along with the Deadpool movies, Rhett also wrote for Zombieland, G.I. Joe Retaliation, and for the kids in the audience, because today's film, Once Upon a Deadpool, is a family film rated at PG-13, he also wrote Tarzan 2, as well as Clifford's Really Big Movie, which is not the live action movie, which I think you saw, Andrew, one time, and you said that it upsets you to your core.
Oh yeah, I've blocked it out. I've blocked out that movie almost completely. That one was there's no time. I'm not getting that time back.
And Rhett worked alongside, once again, Paul Wernick, who also wrote all the Deadpool movies along with Rhett, as well as a lot of his claim to fame, which is basically Big Brother 2, sorry, on CBS.
Oh, the sure.
Yeah, it was the most random thing. But I was like, you know what? For a Deadpool movie, I would not expect less. Other fun thing about this movie is currently rated at a 56% on Rotten Tomatoes and has a similar score amongst the audiences. And I guess it's more so because of the reason why they cut out a lot of the stuff that makes it rated R and changes the F word to family.
Yeah. So it's a half and half, whether we're gonna love it or hate it. This is ideal for a caper
Mhm.
cap. Right down the middle.
Going to the cast list real quick. We got Ryan Reynolds as the Merc with the Mouth, aka Deadpool, aka Wade Wilson. Josh Brolin was famous at this point amongst Marvel entirely during these years because not only was he playing Thanos in the Avengers movies, he was also Cable here in our movie today. Miranda Baccarin is Vanessa Carlyle. We know her more famously on the DC side, but she is here as the love interest for Deadpool. Julian Dennison plays the embodiment of teenage rage as Russell, aka Fire Fist. Stefan Capici is Colossus. This will be his second time returning into the role. TJ Miller operates the bar where Deadpool goes to get a drink at a couple times. So he's the quick tongue named character named Weasel.
Oh yes, and let's address this right away. We know he's canceled. We know.
Oh, well, that's news to me. TJ Miller, you're canceled.
Yeah. It really started with him calling a false bomb threat on a train.
Oh,
That's something he did. After that, some other stuff came out, reports that weren't as substantiated, but he definitely did that train thing. So we know he's canceled. Just as we go forward, just wanted to let you know right away.
all right. For the sake of this episode, then, we will quickly pass by most of his scenes, and if we need to reference who he is, we'll just go by Weasel. Next up, Brianna Hildebrand returns as Negasonic Teenage Warhead, the longest named character I feel like I've ever heard of. The only person that's beating her right now is Bakugo in My Hero Academia, honestly. We got Leslie Uggams as Blind Al, Karan Sani as Dopinder, and finally, coming into this movie to help the duo that we have here today, we have Zazie Beetz as Domino. All right, with that, let's put in some maximum effort and watch Once Upon a Deadpool.
So we start differently from the original. Deadpool 2 opens with an extended scene of violence with the Yakuza and Deadpool slicing it up, but limbs go flying and blood goes, not in the PG-13 version. So instead, we open with Fred Savage tied to the bed. And if you have not seen Princess Bride, Fred Savage was the kid in Princess Bride. The plot of that is that Fred Savage is sick, and sick boy, and his grandpa reads him a story that he doesn't want at first, but then he gets into it. So Deadpool does a take on that by tying him to the bed, kidnapping Fred Savage, and forcing him to listen to Deadpool, the story of Deadpool 2, read by Deadpool in this fake bedroom set.
I do appreciate that because I have never actually seen The Princess Bride.
I mean, it's like it's one of those things where it's like if you didn't see it right when you were a kid, you see it at age 30. It's one or the other. Like,
okay. Oh, perfect. I'm
yeah,
right at the number.
yeah. So yeah, that's a brief rundown. So you understand like what if you haven't seen Princess Bride, now you know what they were making fun of the whole time. If you haven't, then again, I can see why some people immediately were like, what's going on?
Also, sorry, I also forgot to mention the other crazy thing about this film. technically this is a Christmas film. Given the fact that it was released around Christmas, all the advertisements had Christmas themes. We will see how much of a Christmas film this truly is. Um, as we continue on with Deadpool is introducing the fact that because it's PG-13, they're cutting down a lot of stuff. The only even mentioning that the only F word that we're going to be using in this movie is Fred. So as we mentioned, opening up to how Deadpool 2 opened up, Deadpool's been operating now for about 2 years. He takes on the Yakuza. He meets up with Dopinder, who drives him back. Dopinder starts sharing a very heartfelt confession to Deadpool, in which, after the events of Deadpool 1, so previously on Deadpool, Dopinder had locked up his love interest, like the competition for his love interest, inside the back of his car. And well, since this is PG-13, we'll just say that this person did not make it to the sequel. And he says that because of that, he has this newfound lust for being a part of what Deadpool does. So he wants to go out there and make a name for himself. So Deadpool at first is against this, but eventually he's like, we'll figure something out. So as Deadpool heads out the car, he runs up to his apartment where he's greeted by Vanessa because today is their anniversary after all the events that happened when they had separated and now they're together again. And it's a wonderful thing where they engage in a kiss. And this is when Deadpool cuts back to Fred Savage and is waiting for him to say the line. I had to research this because, again, never saw Princess
Yes.
Bride.
Yes,
But
yeah, I could chime in here too.
okay, cool. I was like,
uh
I don't know what I'm talking about here.
So, the original Princess Bride, the story the grandfather reads to Fred Savage, it starts out as heavy focus on romance, but then it becomes adventure, pirates, etc. So, at the beginning, before we get to the adventure part, the grandfather mentions a kiss between the two romantic leads, and Fred Savage goes, "Ugh, is this a kissing story? Gross." So because Vanessa and Deadpool kiss, Deadpool was waiting for that line again. Um, that's the joke. I know
Thank
that
you.
takes the air out of it, but that's the joke.
So now that they're celebrating their anniversary, they're thinking about what's it going to look like for them to expand their family, as they're just running jokes about what name they should have for their kid. The other thing, though, that does happen is as Deadpool is warming up a Pop Tart while they're watching Barbra Streisand film and trying to figure out why Papa Can You Hear Me sounds very much like another Disney song, they immediately get attacked by the same group of people that Deadpool was trying to take out earlier in the film.
Yes, and unfortunately, he uses all his knives before the last villain gets there. He only has a butter knife, and it's not enough. He misses, and Vanessa is shot dead. And this is probably one of my favorite cutaways to Fred Savage, where he just immediately screams, "You fridged Vanessa!" In comic books, when they kill the female love interest for development of the male, you did that. You did that. And it's a great discussion and a great lampshade because yes, I think anyone who has seen Deadpool 2, and one of the things that people have disagreed with on it is the decision to kill Vanessa off for character development, for the plot to happen. So it was nice to get a shot at that, but it did create a bit of a problem because the joke is great, but it comes literally in the middle of her dying. So we
Mm-hmm.
go back and she's still dying. So tonally, it kind of ruins the really gut punch you got in the original of that happening is kind of like because they put a joke right in the middle of it, it kind of loses its edge a bit.
Yeah, I agree. I remember even watching the movie originally in theaters, and I remember my jaw drop because I was just like, man, we just spent the entire previous film of him working towards getting her back, and after putting himself through all these things in order to just to create a life with her. And it gave Deadpool a strong sense of substance to me, even though it is one of the most comedic films you could probably watch. So yeah, I agree. This like in the moment scene, I feel like it was better served for people like you mentioned, that already saw this happening. And obviously, Wade, Deadpool, is very upset about this. So he starts chasing after the guy, very much like Peter Parker chasing after the guy that shot Uncle Ben. Um, and, you would think in that moment, given the fact that Deadpool is an assassin, given the fact that Deadpool tends to have no regard for like the villainous side of things, you think he would kill this guy. Instead, he embraces him in the rain and then turns around to have him get thrown into a truck, ultimately
As
killing him.
right. Yeah, as we know, Deadpool heals, so that doesn't really affect him at all. But it's a great way to dispatch the enemy. And now Wade is devastated, doesn't know what to do with his life, so he's just in the bar all the time with Weasel. And this is where he makes the connection between Do You Want to Build a Snowman and Yentl. And this is one of my favorite jokes. I'm glad that one made it into the final cut of this because yeah, it's the same song. Go listen to it side by side. Papa, can you hear me?
Here, do
Do you
you
want
want to
to?
build us? Oh, well.
Yep. Yep, same thing. Um so at this point, Wade is just floundering. He Dopinder and Weasel can't cheer him up. He's just a disgusting mess. Even Buck, the bar patron, can't cheer him up. And I'm glad they circle back to that in the later film about him not getting any speaking lines. Um, so now just truly, truly lost. Deadpool goes back to his old roommate Blind Al's apartment, gets some sugar, as it's labeled, happy sugar, um, right above the cure for blindness, which is under the floorboards.
Yeah.
Great, great callback. And they have a conversation, and Deadpool is just he doesn't really know how to go on. So he tries to do something about that.
And we get several gag scenes here that weren't in the original film. You see a lot of references to Disney. There's like some characters from Up, or at least like people who try to look like Up characters that were in there. Um, there's like him at a zoo talking with some kids, and well, unfortunately, because of Deadpool's ridiculous healing factor, anything that he tries to do to himself, he just comes right back to it. So as he's like, you've seen all these like Disney gag scenes taken to a whole new level. He ultimately decides the best thing to do is to do the same that we saw in the original film, just to head back to the apartment and just scorch earth the entire place that he's in. The explosion is enough to send him to the afterlife, it seems. Um, and as he's floating into this like watery abyss, he comes to a point where he's standing and he sees off in the distance in a very illuminated room is Vanessa sitting on the chair, looking outside, and he's thinking, this is how we're going to spend the rest of our time together in this afterlife place.
Yeah, but unfortunately, he cannot cross the barrier to Vanessa, and Vanessa can only give him the hint that his heart needs to be in the right place. With that cryptic hint, he's launched back to life, where now Colossus is dragging him back to the X Mansion, and here Colossus, Yukio, and Negasonic Teenage Warhead, the only three X-Men they can't afford to have consistently on screen. They all try in their own ways to get Wade back, but Wade is just not convinced that he is worth the time and effort. We do in the middle of this, while he's complaining about no X-Men, get a fantastic cameo, probably one of the best cameo of all time, where he complains there's no X-Men, and you turn around and in a room are a bunch of X-Men from the new timeline closing the door so that Deadpool doesn't find out about them. This must have been for Dark Phoenix that they were all assembled for, because I know they had one day to run all these people over from one set to the other. So I think this is while they were shooting
Uh,
Dark Phoenix. So Dark Phoenix, it did contribute something positive. Um, but
yeah.
that's your one thing. Um, but now, as Wade is lamenting he missed a chance for family, we're introduced to another person who really is obsessed with family, and that is Cable.
Yeah, I almost thought you meant Dominic Toretto.
Yeah.
But, but the vibes are similar because we see that Cable enters a room much like that similar scene where it's just a scorched earth apartment. We see that Cable enters one as well, and he picks up a little dusty, burnt up doll. It's a little bear. And as he picks it up, he attaches it to his gear. He uses his time travel device and lets out this huge scream, creating now I will just call the Terminator 2 effect of this movie, where basically it's just like he will eventually pop back into the past. He'll meet some people and will steal some stuff from them. But before all that happens, of course, Wade is trying to learn what it's like to live again. He experiences much of the domestic life. He starts learning about labeling foods in the fridge. He even gives Colossus some new soap that he tells him that if he, well, because this is a PG-13 film, I can say it. If he pumps real hard, he'll get what he needs to get.
I can't believe that joke made it into the PG-13 version.
That's what I'm thinking about too, and especially when you find out further later about what was actually in that thing.
Yeah, and I do like also this cutaway here. There's a Fred Savage who is like Kate. He gets so excited about Cable. He breaks down his origin. I hesitate to say this, but maybe even faster than you could. For Cable.
You hear me, Fred Savage? I'm calling you out right now. We're going to do is a speed run through of origin stories.
But that's also a great meta joke that Fred Savage is really excited about diving into the origins of Cable, which they actually don't do in this movie because it would, I don't even know how they would be able to do it without confusing the audience a lot. So
yeah, you would need at least 19 years of X-Men films in order to explain it properly. And we missed our chance, people.
The window is closed. Um, but in any case, back with Deadpool, he is asked to go on a mission with Colossus and Negasonic, and it is to stop a kid who's calling himself Fire Fist from just burning everything around him at this really creepy looking orphanage. And Deadpool arrives, decides to take the lead, and as he is going up to talk to the kid, it's here where I realized one advantage of Deadpool's costume is it's extremely easy to overdub lines because there are some lines in the original that I'm like,
Oh
oh,
yeah.
he said this, but very easy with the suit to just put in what a PG-13 friendly version of the line. Real big advantage they had here.
Also for the algorithm, real quick, I'm just going to say Fire Fist a lot because I figured that this might entice our One Piece fans. So during the time in which Fire Fist is fighting against the X-Men, of course he is Fire Fist and solos a lot of these characters because they're not expecting for a teenage Fire Fist to basically knock them around a lot. The people in the orphanage are trying to calm him down. The orphanage is actually called the Essex Corporation. It's labeled as a mutant re-education center. I know that this is a reference, and I'm seeing a lot of Mr. Sinister when I was thinking about this. Unfortunately, I didn't do too much of a deep dive on this, but I know that this is definitely, it feels like a connection to that. So as Fire Fist is able to take out basically Colossus, Negasonic Teenage Warhead, and even sends Deadpool flying, where we see another cameo of Hugh Jackman on a Wheaties box. Deadpool is able to use his sword as a spear in order to hit Fire Fist in the face, and this allows for it was just the hilt. This is a PG-13 film, so it was just a hilt. It was the same in the rated R film too, because Deadpool don't kill kids. At least
Yeah.
not this time. Um, so as he is able to calm down Fire Fist and he's receiving the praises of the crowd, Deadpool's loving it. He does notice though that on Russell's neck there seems to be some bruises, especially around the collar, the power suppressing collar that they give him. So this is when Deadpool is just like, you know what? As an X-Men trainee, which is also a running joke throughout this particular scene, he decides that the best thing to do is to unalive as many people connected to the Essex Corporation as possible, because clearly they are torturing Fire Fist here at the facility. This leads to Deadpool being taken out by Colossus, and power suppressing collars also placed on Deadpool. So the two of them are now being transported to the icebox.
Yes, and this is one of the main points where it's obvious that they have done creative edits and cuts, probably like pre-blood spurt CGI. Because when he does kill people at the facility, Deadpool, it is bloodless and not headshots. so, um, so as they're going to prison, um, we get Cable coming back to this time period from the future. And you and if you did miss this, it's completely fine. But the trucker talking about wiping and toilet paper, that's Matt Damon. If you guys missed that, because he's under a lot of makeup. Um, so he steals the car to head into town.
I had a question about that.
Yeah.
It's so that's Matt Damon. Was the other guy Alan Tudyk?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. All right. Two great
Uncredited
character
cameos.
actors. Yeah. Uncredited. Love these guys because they're always so willing to use prosthetics. I love these guys.
Yeah. And it's such a random conversation. That I think they shortened because it goes on for a long time, the original. So we get back to the prison where Russell is really obsessed with trying to kill everyone who wronged him. And Deadpool really doesn't want any part of it. He's with the power suppressor. His cancer is coming back aggressively. So he's just kind of wanting to be left alone. And even though Russell really thinks he's good, Deadpool's like, without this collar on, I have no powers. I'm basically Hawkeye. Which is nothing great. One of the great
That was
gags.
so rude. That was so rude.
sorry, man. And this is where they just start having trouble in prison. Black Tom Cassidy, who is not black, we want to clarify, attacks them. And after getting beaten to a pulp, Deadpool says, "Hey, while you're here, try to make some new friends." It's advice that Russell will remember. In those Telltale games, Russell will remember that. He does. But right now, they don't have time because Cable is here.
Yeah, he enters with a full-on force. It's a great entry. I think it's a great entry for a character as well, because even though we had seen the scene when he just kind of like picked up the doll and did all that things, you saw the man, but here we're seeing the character, the fictional character, the superpowered individual, and he's just showing everybody in this as like he has a mission, and that mission is to kill Fire Fist. So this is when Deadpool at first is like, well, I don't know if I should, but he does remember during a fight scene that he does have with Cable that maybe this is what Vanessa meant by his heart not being into it, and like the idea of family and everything. So after making some quick jokes about how Cable is too dark, as he's sure that he's not from the DC universe, and also there's an extensive dubstep fight sequence that uses Bangarang by Skrillex. I know this because that song took over for 5 years, like 10 years ago. It was a lot. The song was everywhere, but it is a great fight sequence.
Every YouTube video, now that I'm thinking of it, like every YouTube video ended like that.
It was like, did you really make it if you didn't add Bangarang by Skrillex onto your song? So as Deadpool has this extensive fight scene, the collar that he has also gets broken off. So it does give him a bit of his healing abilities back. We do see Deadpool get folded in different ways for the comical sense of things. Um,
Literally and figuratively.
yes. And it then eventually leads into Cable and Deadpool blasting a hole through the wall and basically not quite, but should have, causing an avalanche from where they were. And because thankfully, once again, Deadpool has his healing factor, but it was at a point where he was very close to death. He sees Vanessa, and Vanessa tells him that he has to save the kid in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, so this inspires Deadpool thinking about the odds against Cable while he's talking to Weasel and Dopinder. Uh, they're not only against Cable, but they're up against a whole force of soldiers transporting these mutants. So they decide we need a team. We need some kind of suicide squad. No, they don't say that in the movie, but imagine if they did.
But oh my god, yeah, this would be the perfect time to use that phrase.
What are we, some kind of suicide squad? So he decides to unite the X-Force. And this is a great scene of where we have a bunch of characters coming in and advertising. Also, another one of my top jokes from this movie where Dopinder tries to get on the team and they're like, "What's your superpower?" And he pauses and he says, "Courage." That's just a great joke. And the montage is also good. Bedlam being able to distort the fields and electric fields and cause nausea. Who's acidic guy? Who's acidic?
I want to call him Spit Viper, but I know that's not right.
It's Bill
Well,
Skarsgård. That's
yeah,
who it is.
that was a surprising get to me because I was just like, Terry Crews, I can definitely see, but Bill Skarsgård, like what?
Yeah, his thing is shooting acidic vomit, and it's just like, yeah, we've all been to Arby's. I just had to get that joke out because I will not be sponsored by Arby's because I just refuse. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, let me just cancel that meeting I have with them.
I don't want the meats, all right? I don't want them.
Oh my gosh. We also get Shatterstar from Mojo World. That's a lot. I'm just gonna say that because I feel like that's a lot to introduce into this podcast. Just watch X-Men 97. You'll get a sense of what Mojo World is. But my favorite is definitely Vanisher.
Oh yeah. What a long great monologue.
Oh yeah. It's the screen presence that Vanisher had. Amazing.
Just chef's kiss all the way around. During this montage, we also get two quick yet important scenes that Russell sneaks into a cell containing the biggest person in the prison and gives them a pudding, making an alliance. And we also get Cable capturing Weasel, and he gives this great Cable. It's Josh Brolin, so he can give a great, intimidating speech, and he's going about all the ways he's going to torture Weasel. Saying he's going to work through the levels of pain that you can experience, and we're going to work through it together. And Weasel immediately folds. He immediately is like, I'll tell you everything, but except that where they are. And he just grunts and he goes, all right, let me tell you exactly where they're going to be at what time. Also, there's a wind advisory.
Oh my gosh, it's a great scene. I think that was one of my favorite scenes of this film, just because like you always get these like, especially in these like tough guys superhero kind of stuff, you always get like the torture scene, and it's like, yeah man, I didn't break or nothing like that, and this guy immediately folded. I loved it. It was a nice change of pace from when we originally saw it and even now today. So speaking of that wind advisory though, we also have two other characters who are part of the team, who are Domino, played by Zazie Beetz, as I mentioned. Great back and forth between the two of them, because her and Deadpool, because it really does come into question, is luck a superpower? We will find out that it is. And of course, the iconic man himself, which I gotta commend him, because I was not expecting his presence. Peter, who basically is just like, you know what? I saw the ad. Here's my headshot. Looks nothing like me, but you know what? You're gonna love having me on this team. And
Yeah,
he qualifies.
he does. He beats out Dopinder for a role on the team. And this is of course one of the best uh comedic introductions of a team ever. Because they jump out of a plane to get to the convoy, but because of that wind advisory, they all immediately are blown all over the place. Um, most of them die in horrific ways. Vanisher, when he hits the electric lines, it's revealed that Vanisher is actually Brad Pitt. Which Fred Savage is like, how the hell did you get Brad Pitt and Matt Damon in this movie? And they go on a very long tangent about fighting Matt Damon, which
Oh,
you'll
okay.
either love or hate.
I I love the scene. I will say it did run a bit too long, but oh my gosh, it was perfect. I definitely, whoever's listening out there, please get me one of those like sensor beep things. I think they're like $5. If you're willing to spend $5 on my enjoyment, I would very much appreciate it.
It's one of those that goes on for so long it becomes funny again.
Yeah.
Um, or you just hated it the whole time. So pretty much everyone dies horrifically in wood chippers, in helicopter blades, crashing into buses, except for Domino and Deadpool, who are the only ones to survive this vicious attack. Oh, Peter also dies getting acid breath Arby's on him um in the middle of it. But now Domino and Deadpool are off to stop the convoy in the middle of and Cable arrives to attack. And another fun fact is that during when Cable is throwing out prisoners out of the convoy to try to stop Deadpool from getting on, one of the prisoners he throws out is the director of the movie. David Leitch is the first prisoner to be thrown onto the street. So again, this movie is still full of like fun Easter eggs in the casting that you'll blink and you'll miss them.
Another person gets thrown out, unfortunately, is Black Tom Cassidy, which now creates the fact, according to Deadpool, that Cable is racist. It's an A+ joke for no reason. So as they're driving around, Domino tries to help. There's also a great scene in which I think I don't know if this was the intention, but it did seem very similar, in which Cable does shoot repeatedly at Deadpool, and Deadpool uses a similar sword swing as he did to in the what was it, X-Men Origins the Wolverine movie, when everybody was shooting at him. So there's that one point in which he tries to show that he can slice the bullet. Unfortunately, it does not work, and Deadpool just basically gets shot completely up. And then Domino is able to do something to the truck to make sure that it doesn't hit too many either parked cars or cars with passengers, because luck is a superpower that definitely works. And I'm not saying that sarcastically. I love the fact that that was a superpower that actually worked. Fortunately, they were able to crash or turn the truck over. Once they're all flown out from it, we do see that the last person who was in that truck who hadn't gotten thrown out was the new friend that Russell had made, the biggest man in the X-Men scope of things. Not the biggest man in the universe, because we got Galactus, but whatnot. But I digress. Yeah. The biggest X-Men villain I think we've ever seen, the Juggernaut.
Yes, no Vinnie Jones, Apocalypse. I'm the Juggernaut bitch here. No small people here. It's not that Vinnie Jones is small, but not Juggernaut size. Our most jacked character arrives and immediately rips Deadpool in half. Literally. This is one of the smartest PG-13 cuts they do, because in the original you see entrails and blood and everything, but here they cut right to Fred Savage as the rip is happening, so it's less distracting that you don't see it. So Russ goes for revenge, Deadpool and his friends reconvene at Blind Al's. That's the movie's name, not mine. Um, so just want to clarify, everyone. Um, and as it's revealed that Deadpool is growing baby legs to replace the legs he had lost, and this is where Fred Savage brings up a really good question that was not addressed in the original film.
Yeah, so if you rip Deadpool in half, given his regenerative ability, does that mean that there are now two Deadpools? Like, if the top half is the one we're continuing the story with, does the bottom half continue to grow and regenerate as well, meaning that there's a Deadpool out there with their own adventures? Also, it like to what extent are we talking about this? Because it's like, how many Deadpools can we get in one film if he just continues getting ripped in half? It's a question that even Deadpool doesn't even have the answer to.
Yeah, it's just an example of the shoddy, lazy writing. But it's a really great gag, and it quickly is followed by another gag that they shortened for the PG-13 movie for a lot of reasons, where Deadpool uncrosses his leg like Basic Instinct. If you haven't seen that, I understand it's a very old movie for most of us. Um,
Somehow, actually, I saw that, but not the Princess Bride.
that's a weird programming schedule. I gotta say.
I
Um,
blame I blame Channel 11 and Pix. I don't know.
yeah. This is when Cable shows up. Another great gag of Cable showing up, and as Deadpool's talking about Cable, he goes to Dopinder. He's right behind you, isn't he? And they turn and see, a good take on the joke. Um, and Cable reveals that in the future, Russ, after killing the people who abused him, goes on to become a homicidal maniac and ends up killing Cable's wife and daughter as revenge for Cable trying to take out Russell. So, this is a great parallel between Cable and Deadpool. Both of them were killing people, or at least using force to take out people. And then their enemies eventually caught up with them and destroyed their families. So this immediately creates, despite everything that's happened between the two, Deadpool can at least understand where Cable is coming from right now. So he agrees to help on a
And
condition.
also,
Yeah.
I just want to say too, the main other reason why I love this scene is that it's scored to "The Sun Will Come Out Tomorrow."
Mm,
Um, I think I just thought that was just a clever take, and it's done in this like childlike wonder. I have I have a thing where I don't like where in the movie there's like the children are singing these like songs and these very like dark events. It creeps me the heck out. And like that to me added so much more of a scare factor in this film, that this entire time when watching Russell in this whole experience that he was in with Deadpool, I was like, oh, well, maybe he's not going to be that bad. It's whatever. He's just this kid trying to learn how to navigate the world after everybody had thrown the worst at him. And then you see what that turns out to be. And I think this was made specifically for people like me who like they hear like the children singing the songs and the creepy scenarios, and just like we're going to intensify the fear and the danger that's coming with this scene. So I think that having that particular scene, and as you mentioned, tying the fact that it's just like how similar Cable and Deadpool's stories are, it was to me a masterclass in like showing how much of a force that Russell is, because not only is he just like connecting these two individuals now, but he's also creating a true villain for this movie when we never even saw him as a villain.
yeah. It's a really brilliant of like a nature versus nurture thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, even though the first movie was all about whether Deadpool could be a hero or not, and ultimately the decision was he is a killer. He's not exactly a hero, but he's not a villain either. He's not someone they have to worry about as much. So it's a great evolution for his character to in this movie have to deal with someone who also is right on the precipice of going bad or good. So it's
Mm-hmm.
really good that he is here to mentor that kind of person. It's a really great evolution of the character and shows how really, even though it does seem like a silly parody movie on the surface, they really did think about what's the next step for his character, and that's to meet other killers and see if he can guide them on the right path, which is kind of, the running theme of Deadpool's movies. Um,
Mm-hmm.
to make people be the best versions of themselves by, letting their reservations down a little bit. So uh even though he has that power, when he tries to appeal to Colossus to help, Colossus doesn't want to jump in. He's tired of Wade's nonsense. And even though Cable has even agreed to give Deadpool 30 seconds to try to save Russell, he's not for it. So they decide to go by themselves. Now it's Deadpool, Dopinder, Domino, and Cable. And here's a little preview of of Deadpool and Wolverine, because Deadpool and Cable have some great banter. Um and just watch it. It's just the whole
Yeah.
conversation is great, alluding to Cable's racism, his comic book height. It's really it's a
Basically,
really
Deadpool is
good.
just like, listen, Cable, you're Cap, okay? We know this. I also love the fact that Domino was backing up Cable and was like, I don't think, and was like, he was like speaking as a black person in the room. I don't think he's racist. It's such a great. I think I would love to see them on screen more. Just because I feel like the dynamic that they have, it's, a lot of it is definitely influenced by Ryan Reynolds, just basically saying whatever comes to mind. At least I'm assuming what comes to mind. But I do love the fact that you have people that can hear that, and it's just like, I will give you either a very serious answer or I'm going to try and one up you. And just like the going back and forth, I think is what drew me into thinking like these characters are, they're great. They're great together. They're not even just characters, but the actors are great together in this scene. Even just like including Dopinder in the mix was just a lot of fun. As they now reach back to the Essex location, and now they're realizing that Russell, as Fire Fist, fully realized Fire Fist, has decided to team up with Juggernaut, and their goal is to basically take out every single person in this building. This is going to be Russell's villain origin story. His goal is to kill the headmaster of the entire place, and he knows that right now the fight is, how can we stop, as you mentioned, how can we stop that one person from their first kill? Because once that happens, it's all over. And they all gear up. They immediately start running out the car. There's some awesome sounding music that's playing in the background. They're running in slow-mo. It's slow-mo that takes a reasonable amount of time. I'm not talking one of those like, we're going to turn a 2-hour film into 3 hours just because it's a director's cut. Uh, sorry, I'm not have a little bit of anger towards a particular re-released film.
He's
It
talking
was
about
already a
Rebel
director's
Moon.
cut.
Rebel Moon,
was
everyone.
it was already a director's cut. We don't need another one. Also, gotta appreciate that Dopinder joins in on the mix. He is running through. Unfortunately, though, because Juggernaut is there to stop them, this is what leads into, we need more help. So they called the second most Jack character in this movie to make an appearance, and he's ready to rumble.
Yes, Colossus versus Juggernaut. Honestly, probably one of the best CGI versus CGI battles, as Deadpool would say himself, in superhero movies, and in, I would say, in the decade. I think it's really a really good match of powers and this brawl. It's just a straight up brawl between two big jacked dudes. And ironically, I love this little irony of the movie that Deadpool and Cable, to try to get Russell to stop from kill a lot of people,
Yeah.
kill a lot of bad guys, to get to Russell. Eventually, through a little the magic of electricity, and if you've seen the first episode of The Boys, that's how they defeat Juggernaut here, with electricity and some water. And Deadpool gets to Russell, and is trying to talk Russell down, but Russell is just not coming down. So, as an extreme measure, Deadpool puts on a mutant suppressing collar. So now Russell knows he's completely vulnerable. But when it still seems like it's going to go south, Cable goes to shoot Russell, but Deadpool takes the bullet.
Yeah. And here we get a chance to see the one scene, the one death scene that lasts longer than Yoda's. Deadpool is just telling everyone his final wishes and all that. Even tells Cable that he hopes that one day that he will judge people by the content of their skin and not the color of their the content of their character and not the color of their skin. Says hi to Yukio one last time. And as he finally passes, we see that Deadpool has finally made it into the afterlife. He is next to Vanessa now. They have their embrace. But then back into the land of the living, Cable, who using his time device, he does know that this is the last time he can use this. So he turns on the time device to take himself back to the beginning of when they were in the car. And this is when Vanessa tells Deadpool, it's still not your time. You got to go back and be there for your family. And it's this new family that he's built here. Now, not the X-Force. It's literally this family that he has with Cable, Domino, Colossus, and Russell even. So with Deadpool now coming back to life, because Cable in the past apparently takes the skee ball token that Deadpool gave it to Vanessa for their anniversary, for their 1 year anniversary. Deadpool held on to it after Vanessa's death. Cable stole it during their fight in the icebox, and Cable placed it back into the exact spot where he knew he was going to shoot Deadpool in the future. So he made sure to place it there, and because it was straight lead, thankfully it was on Deadpool, because I'm pretty sure that could have caused many a harm to any other person. The bullet is stopped, and now Deadpool is alive, knowing that Cable went back in time to make this change. He's hoping even for Cable that his family is going to be okay. And we get that confirmation when the little bear that he had connected to his body, which was his daughter's, is now, instead of it being the burnt bear that is missing some things, is now a fully clean bear, like it was dipped in a bathtub full of Dawn soap.
Yes. So the future is now changed, and Cable says, you know what? I'm going to stick around to make sure that it stays that way. Group now walks away as a fully formed family in an hilarious Easter little note. Dopinder accidentally kills the villain of the movie instead of Fire Fist. So thus no one gets away scot-free. Here we cut straight back to Fred Savage, and this is where Deadpool says, hey, there are going to be a couple post-credit scenes, and Fred Savage and Deadpool kind of geek out over the post-credit scenes. Famously in this post-credit scene, the time machine is fixed by Yukio and Negasonic, so Deadpool is able to go back in time, save Vanessa. He's able to save Peter. Good thing, because Peter is a huge character later on. And to really, for us, he kills the Origins version of Deadpool and kills the Ryan Reynolds, who would have signed on to Green Lantern.
Yes. And that's it. That's how our film wraps up in a very touching note for the fans. With that, now we have to determine if Deadpool, Once Upon a Deadpool, has earned its cape, or is this movie a Chris Evans, aka a Cap?
Yes, I will also mention the true ending is that Fred Savage is cut from his bed, and since his legs have been asleep for 3 days, uh, he collapses almost instantly. And that's the last scene of the movie. Also, he has no pants. He's naked from the waist down.
Like Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah. Yes, but is it cape or cap? I am gonna say cape, actually. I think
Mm.
I do think I'll get it. I'll address the Fred Savage in the room. Does the framing device work? Yes and no. There are times when it really does enhance the movie, and it is fun to hear Fred Savage's comments. And there are times like where we mentioned before with Vanessa, where it does get a little distracting for them to stop the movie to cut in. I think if I was going to do an alteration on the framing device, I would have it be more of a director's commentary, where
Mm.
they would be able to chime in at any time and talk over some of the events of the movie, after they establish this frame exists, rather than cut away to Fred Savage. I get why they did it and the temptation, and they still could find the best of both worlds. But I think it might have worked a little bit better as a director's commentary setup. But honestly, the thing that makes me like this version of it is it's more focused. I think in the original Deadpool 2, we have the themes of family and togetherness and everything. And it's there, but there are a lot of R-rated jokes and gags that go on for a bit and kind of distract it. Here, I feel like it's more streamlined, that the line to Deadpool wanting a family to losing that family and gaining it again. I feel like because they had to cut out a lot of really raunchy gags and blood, we get to that line so
Yeah.
much faster. And sure, we do lose some jokes. That is definitely no argument there. But honestly, the best jokes that I remember from Deadpool 2 are still here, and I don't miss the blood and gore as much. Of course, that is a main appeal of these movies, and I'm not saying, Deadpool 2 is worse, but I do think this is a streamlined story that moves a little bit quicker. And my third thing I want to say is that I think that if somebody has not watched any of the Deadpool and wanted to watch Deadpool and Wolverine, they should watch this version of Deadpool 2, because they it skips all the jokes about Logan, mainly in this version. Um and I think it kind
Mm.
of, if you're watching them in succession and you kind of don't want to blow the Logan jokes early, this is a good place to watch it, because they only mention Logan a couple of times, and you're going to get a lot of Logan in 3. So overall, I hesitate to say it's a better version of Deadpool 2, but I would say it is a streamlined and more focused version with some notable parts where it gets a little distracted by itself. But I think it's a solid version of this movie. I know that's not a popular opinion, but I kind of like this version. How about you?
Yeah, that's an interesting way to put it, because I did feel very similar. I was just like, I felt like the pacing was very different compared to when I first watched it. And I thought maybe it was like, oh, because of the interjection of like Fred Savage coming in and just saying, like, let's reiterate what we just saw, just so that there's a clear understanding of it. But I agree. I think it's a much more of a streamlined movie. I would say that this is still because like I've always felt like Deadpool 2 um was a pretty strong film when it came to like given this his particular story. I would say that it is also a cape for me. Um, the only reason why I will give it a cap rating is because it's not a Christmas film in any way, shape, or form. This is the thing that upset me the most, because like I was just like, you have an opportunity, given the fact that this film was released on Christmas. If you're seeing all the ads, it is very Christmas themed. Even some of the imagery in the commercials and the ads and the trailers for it were Christmas themed. So to watch this movie and there's not like anything related at all to the holiday season is a little weird. And it feels like it was more focused on like, we know that this is coming out around Christmas. Let's just like play into that and like just trick the parent to have kids that wanted to see Deadpool, but at first were told no. So I would have expected, if it was a little different, like maybe incorporate even some lights, or just treat it more, because it's not the first time in which, like, in a Christmas movie where an elderly person is reading a story to a younger child. um I think one of my favorite ones I'm thinking about right now is Jingle Jangle.
Mm.
Whereas you just have Felicia Rashad who's reading the story, and it's basically the same thing, just replace the scenario, give it a bit more of a holiday feel if you were going to market this as a Christmas movie. Because there's not even a mention of what time of year this takes place in. So this is, yeah, it's a cape for storytelling. It's a cape for the additions. Some gag scenes did seem a little extra, but I did appreciate the fact that it came right at the height of when Disney had bought Marvel. So
Mm.
there were a lot of bit more like Disney references in it, because it was like, we can now say these things because or sorry, not Marvel, but Fox, or I mean, Disney owns everything. So
Mm-hmm.
it was right at the moment where they could easily say a lot of the things that I feel popped up more so in this version than it did in Deadpool 2. Yeah, but I would just say my main issue with it, it's not a Christmas movie in any way, shape, or form. It did not make sense to market it as such. It's not a Christmas movie at all. It did not make any sense to me to market it as that way. I would have just enjoyed this movie as just like, let's just give it a kid version story of the Deadpool 2 movie. I think that as parents who probably have kids that know, and they know that their kid is too young to watch this kind of content, I think they would appreciate it. I haven't seen The Princess Bride, but I did appreciate the interjections from Fred Savage. And I do agree. I think that it would have been better if it was more like a director's commentary, where it's just like you have the opening scene of Fred Savage, and then you just have scenes of him and Deadpool talking over certain things. Like, even treat it was just like, let's add in like a pause feature. Like, we see Cable pop up and you just see like the VCR kind of stop. And it's just like, and it's like, wait a minute, you guys got Cable in this thing? And just have it play around with that. I think the going back and forth in between the different stories does take a little bit out of it. And hearing from how you described The Princess Bride, I can see why they tried to do that. But I feel like, don't market it as a Christmas movie, and give us less back and forth between Fred Savage and the original film. Like, just give the movie to us just straight as is. But overall, the cape for me, I would definitely be showing, like, definitely not like my 10-year-old. I don't have a 10-year-old, but I was like, I would not show my 10-year-old this movie, but I would feel more comfortable if like my 13-year-old who hasn't experienced R-rated films with like blood and gore, had never seen something like this. I would be okay with them watching this.
Mm. Nice. No, well said. Well said.
Mm.
And I think I can explain some of it in a section. I working title for the section, but when I go behind the scenes, I'm gonna call it loose threads, tentatively loose threads, because cape, theme, threads, sewing. So loose threads about this movie.
I like that. I do like that. Because caps could also have loose threads. If you ever
Ah,
seen, yeah, all right.
there you go. All right, thank you for justifying this. So you did make up a great point. Why is this marketed as a Christmas film when there's nothing Christmas in it? Well, this movie was not supposed to exist. Quite simply, the main reason, again, this is speculation. Fox has not confirmed any of what I'm about to say, but I'm going to put the facts out and let you guys figure it out for yourself. Um, it sounds like a conspiracy, but no, it's just the facts. So originally, in December, Fox was supposed to release Alita Battle Angel. However, it was not ready to be released in cinemas, leaving Fox with a big Christmas slot and nothing to do. Deadpool 2 had done fairly well that year, so what they decided was, why not release a cut of Deadpool 2 in that slot that we have? But we can't just re-release it, nobody would see it. They decided to recut it down to a PG-13 in the hopes that regions that never got to see Deadpool 2 because of the mature content might be able to see it, such as China,
Mm.
who had not approved the first version of the film. So the hope was to expand the film into different territories and also pull people back into the theaters who had already seen it in hopes they would give them money again to see it in theaters. Ryan Reynolds said he wasn't initially into the idea, but he agreed to it on the basis that Fox would donate $1 from every ticket sold to the Fudge Cancer Foundation. So he did. This was a charitable movie, and in spirit of Christmas, but because this happened very rapidly, Fred Savage's scenes were only all filmed in one day, one sitting. They had to get Fred Savage in. So
Wow.
that's a big reason why I think they didn't try too hard to push a Christmas theme. I think also back to the territories thing, I think they also wanted to avoid attaching it to a Christian holiday in case the expansion to territories worked. They didn't want to, root it in a very specific Christian tradition. So
Hmm.
those are the between the speed at which they had the one day with Fred Savage and the fact that they were trying to expand it. Those are probably all the reasons why this is not actually the Christmas movie that they marketed. Why Fox chose to market it as a Christmas movie when Alita Battle Angel also wasn't. Well, maybe that's why Fox has been bought out by Disney.
Yeah.
So you can fill in the blanks there, but that is pretty much behind the scenes of how this movie came to be. Um, X-Force was originally intended to return for Deadpool 3. Again, that didn't happen because Fox bought out. But given the fact that Deadpool and Wolverine is the highest grossing R-rated movie, I would not be surprised if Deadpool 4 pulled back Domino, Cable, Wolverine, and Deadpool all together for an X-Force. And last but not least, something I learned, just now you'll never be able to watch movies the same way again. Because every movie that you watch, the Writers Guild and all the guilds and all the unions are required to give credit to all the actors and writers twice. Now they used to do it right at the beginning of the film. Everybody used to do this. But for the films
Mhm.
that don't do it, they have to do it twice. So that is why when a movie ends and they have a creative title sequence of drawings and cutesy drawings, Deadpool shooting while you see people's names, that is to fulfill the legal requirement to show the credits twice. That's why you have a glossy end
Mm.
titles and then you see black and white credits every time.
Oh, I always wondered about that. I was just like, all right. I mean, I always appreciated the details that a lot of people who are making these movies are putting together to show us in their like very well done animated sometimes sequences of the end credit scenes. I always did wonder. It's just like, well, I know that Ryan Reynolds played Deadpool and Wade
Mhm.
Wilson. I don't need the 15th reminder. But no, that does make sense. Thank you
Yeah.
for making sure that these people gain their credit.
Yeah, and now you'll never watch a movie the same again. Like Endgame, you're like, oh, whoa, that's a really cool tribute to all the Avengers over the years. No, that's a legal requirement.
All this time we thought it was niceties. And it was like, no, we're just trying to make sure we don't get sued.
Just here so we don't get fined.
Yes, because that money should be going to Fudge Cancer. Um,
Yes.
that is not a sponsorship or anything that we have, but we will definitely be putting the link to that into our show notes because F that thing.
Yes.
All right. And speaking of all these like animated sequences and all that, we'd have to talk about the comic books that inspired this whole film, this movie, these characters coming together. Don't worry, it'll be quick because I know that I was already beat by Fred Savage in terms of the origin story of Cable, so I won't tell y'all about that. Instead, though, I will tell y'all about the first time that Deadpool and Cable did meet. And how did that go? So, Deadpool was actually created just to fight Cable. Deadpool was first introduced in the New Mutants number 98 back in 1990. He's created by Rob Liefeld and Fabian Micchese, I believe. I'm sorry, I'm butchering that last name. But these two came together when they were writing and putting together the New Mutants. Liefeld has started working on it with issue number about 86 or so. And when he was thinking about ways to like really wrap it up, some of the things that he did think about was that he wanted to create a duo that could compete against Marvel's biggest characters in that moment to see if there's a way that he can bring their personalities and styles together. And those characters were Wolverine and Spider-Man.
Hmm.
And fortunately for him, he had already created Cable. He already created this straight-laced, very serious guy, no fun in his life, had like a chip on his shoulder, or I guess robotic arm, given the fact of who Cable is. Um, and while Cable was created, I will also preface that Nathan Summers, who is the real name, the alter ego that he has, was created a couple years before. So we got a chance to see Cable come to a full adult self through Rob Liefeld's eyes and artwork. And this is when he realized that he had this straight laced guy. He was like, I need to find my Spider-Man. I need to create a character who just can't stop talking, who cracks a joke at every single thing. And he started designing a character that he then presented the artwork over to Fabian. And Fabian looked at it and was just like, man, you drew Deathstroke from the Teen Titans. And that's what inspired the alter ego name of Deadpool, Wade Wilson, because it was like, well, I mean, if we're going to go full thing, might as well call him something similar to Slade Wilson. And this character will then be introduced in the New Mutants number 98, where his first meetup with Cable was he was hired by a character named Tolliver, who was a New Mutants villain, who was also apparently the time travel future son of Cable. who hired Deadpool to go and assassinate Cable while Cable was learning what it was like to be a team leader for these New Mutants. And there was fighting. There was a couple times in which Cable basically broke Deadpool's jaw and the thing, but he just kept going and going and going. Fortunately, they were finally able to take down Deadpool when Domino showed up, knocked him in the back of the head, and was able to send him on his way. And that's how the story ends. That was their first interaction.
Thanks, Domino. You're so lucky.
Yeah. So with that, Deadpool wasn't the character that we knew him to be kind of like today, this like huge regenerative factor, the character who just couldn't stop talking, or really more so breaking the fourth wall. The fourth wall break was introduced much later for him in the comics. But again, this is really just about 34 years of Deadpool. Deadpool is almost as old as us. It is wild to see that a character who I feel like I have seen my entire life and now came to life in the live action presence, being done by a man who basically is our world's version of Deadpool minus the assassin work. Just bringing him here to life. So when that happened, everybody loved the fact of just like, yeah, you did it. You got your Wolverine, you got your Spider-Man. Let's see more. And this is what led to Deadpool not only teaming up with Cable for many, many comics later on in the future, having all these crazy stories with him, but also it's just like, let's introduce him to a bunch of our other characters. Given the fact he's already has this connection to Cable, meaning that he's a mutant, let's introduce him with the X-Men. So that's how we got team ups between Deadpool and Wolverine, where even right now, they're creating a cover art, a variant cover art where Deadpool and Wolverine are fighting. And I think Biggie is supposed to stop them from fighting.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's just connecting to the absurdity at times of Deadpool. We also had Deadpool teaming up with Spider-Man. So Rob's dreams are coming true, where it's like he's teaming up with these like Marvel big heads in the world. And just a couple years ago, Deadpool teamed up with Black Panther. Deadpool was in Wakanda.
I am cautiously curious about that, how that would even go.
Don't worry. I think it was okay because this time around, it wasn't like he was coming after Cable about his actions towards Black Tom Cassidy. But it does give us a great lens into um the marketability really of Deadpool, because he really started out as just really your basic army dude, like this basic guy who would just go through and just take care of business with a bunch of weapons. And now he's turned into this character that can easily just enter space with all these other big characters in the Marvel universe, even making comments at times about the other worlds like the DC universe. And it may have me think, like, outside of these particular team ups, what character do you think Deadpool should be teamed up with next? Like, if you were writing this book, who would you include?
Um, I would see Deadpool. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious. But I just want to see Deadpool and Loki. I want to see how chaotic this could get. Like, I just don't even know the possibilities of those two together. I just don't even know if, like, they're just out trying to out prank each other. It's kind of like a prank wars kind of thing that they would enter in. And Loki can't kill him, so I think there's a
Mhm.
lot of comedic potential between the two of them.
I like that. My thing was I wanted to do a Deadpool and Joker, just because I feel like Deadpool is the character I feel that might be able to cause Joker to just break. Like, Joker has broken in the past because he was like, he didn't want to team up with Red Skull because he was like, I will condone everything in the world, all kind of manners of violence, but I will not condone Nazis. And that is what he said. And I would appreciate to see, like, how could a character like Deadpool, like, what's not the moral stance that Joker has, but what is the, like, what could be the thing that could break Joker in a comedic sense? And I feel like Deadpool could be the person to do that. And DC, I think I remember a couple years back, DC does have a version of Deadpool that's not Deathstroke. That Harley Quinn did team up with. But it wasn't as, like, overt with the fourth wall breaking, but it was very much so like these characters have a very similar skill set. So that character unfortunately didn't do as well, if I'm not mistaken, just because everybody just thought it was just DC's Deadpool.
Hmm.
Sorry, Deathstroke. We know that you're DC's Deathpool. Deadpool.
Yes, and Deadpool also, of course, appears in Teen Titans Go to the Movies, when Robin and the rest of the Teen Titans call out Deadpool. So he's
Yes.
everywhere.
Wait. And the last thing I'm just going to bring up real quickly is Deadpool's family. So this particular movie was not only just a movie about Deadpool trying to figure out what this family looked like for him, but of course it was also marketed as a Christmas family film. Uh, Deadpool does have a family. It differs in comics a lot of times, but the most current one, the one that seems to have taken the strongest hold within the timeline of things, is the family that he created from a a one night stand that he had with a woman named Carmelita. This led to his most famous daughter, Ellie Camacho. During their moment, Deadpool did not know that he was a father. So when Carmelita brought the child to him to show that, like, hey, this is your kid, in a very, I will say, it was a weird moment, but it was a touching one, because she originally came up to ask him about child support payments, but he said that he couldn't believe that this child was his because this child was too beautiful.
Hmm.
And I just love that, because it was just like, it shows that Deadpool, even though he's like this jokester kind of guy who probably at times seems that he has no care for human life and whatnot, he does. He does. He really truly does. Unfortunately, though, because she got introduced to Deadpool's life, it led to Carmelita and Ellie getting kidnapped. So Deadpool went on this whole mission to make sure to save them. It led to the death of Carmelita. So Deadpool had to find a way to take care of his new kid. And, well, of course, being the fact that he's a mutant, and the chromosome that apparently the X gene travels across is supposed to be the Y chromosome, Ellie developed powers, and her powers are very similar to her father's, except in order for them to activate, she has to completely die. She does not have a regenerative factor. She instead completely dies and then respawns, if anything.
Oh, well, I don't know. I hope she stays out of heroism. I think she should just not do it. I think that's just one of those like, oh, and is she immortal? That's also going to be a great question to
Mhm.
answer later on.
Well, with that wraps up our comic book section. So, yeah, Deadpool got his family, and it does not involve Cable at times. He and Cable tend to team up. I think we're going to see more Deadpool and Cable team ups, because while all the comics are being written right now, really to kind of focus in on the Deadpool Wolverine team up for the sake of the movie, the most iconic team up is Deadpool and Cable, especially because they have this rich history and backstory of how they were created almost to influence one another. So I think that we're gonna, especially now that mutants are back into the comic world, in the sense of like they are connected to the larger universe. I expect in the next couple of years we're going to see that resurgence of Deadpool and Cable storytelling. So that wraps up our episode here. Join us on our next stop for our Ryan and Hugh road trip as we enter Japan. Fortunately, it's not going to be another Batman Japan movie or Yakuza versus Batman versus the Yakuza League. No, we're not doing that. Instead, we are going to see what happens to Hugh Jackman as the Wolverine when he enters Japan in 2013 in this movie called The Wolverine. We're adding the definitive article here to this particular movie.
Yes. We're not covering Batman Ninja 2. Just want to throw that out before anyone gets ideas. We're not doing it. Unless you give us money, then we'll do it.
Speaking of money, be sure to support us through either a one-time gift on Buy Me a Coffee or monthly through our Patreon. Check us out on our socials for updates on episodes that you can find across Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and many other platforms. Take care of yourselves and remember to, well, never actually take advice from a kid who's in jail.
Yes.
I've never been. Oh, my bad.
No. It's like for various reasons you shouldn't.
I mean, look, if this movie has taught me anything, I've never been, but as an objective observer in the game, you might end up getting ripped apart by the most jacked character in the jail.
And if Fox comes to you and says, can we make a PG-13 version of your popular R-rated movie? Make sure they donate to a great charity and get your bag too.
Yes. Thanks again for listening. If you liked what you heard, press that follow button and share us with a friend. And don't forget, you can always see more updates and content on our social media accounts just by searching @Cape or Cap.